They shoved the cold barrel against her temple just as the sun dipped below the rusted rooftops of the abandoned port. For a split second, the world stopped breathing. Even the gulls froze midair, as if afraid to witness what might come next. But Lieutenant Mara Hale didn't flinch. To the men circling her, she looked like nothing more than a tired, unarmed woman in dusty civilian clothes. But what they didn't know, what they were seconds away from discovering, was that Mara Hale wasn't just any woman. She was one of the most decorated and least understood Navy SEALs to ever serve. And the pirates who had kidnapped her team never realized they had just cornered their worst possible nightmare. Mara had only joined her team's humanitarian escort mission because she believed, deeply and quietly, that people deserved safety, even in forgotten corners of the world. She was the kind of SEAL who didn't brag, didn't posture, didn't flaunt her strength. Most didn't even know she held the record for the highest hostage rescue success rate in her unit. She preferred silence, strategy, and precision. Her teammates joked that she had two speeds, invisible and unstoppable. But everything went sideways when their convoy was ambushed near the old port. The attackers were part of a splinter militia, men known for violence, chaos, and a disturbing willingness to hurt anyone who got in their way. Mara's team fought hard, but with civilians trapped, children screaming, and bullets raining from every direction, command ordered a tactical retreat. Mara should have withdrawn with them. But someone had grabbed her medic, Jenkins, the one man she trusted like an older brother. Without hesitation, Mara broke formation and sprinted toward him. That decision cost her her freedom. She was tackled, disarmed, and dragged into the port warehouse where the militia operated. Now she stood with her hands zip-tied, 5 guns aimed at her, while Jenkins lay weak and barely conscious a few feet away. The leader, a broad-shouldered man with a scar carved across his cheek, stepped closer and pressed the barrel harder against her skin. "You break in here for him," he sneered. "You think you're a hero." Mara slowly lifted her gaze. Her voice was calm, terrifyingly calm. "No, I think you made a mistake." They laughed. Of course they laughed. Mara was small compared to most SEALs, her frame lean rather than bulky, her hair tied back in a simple knot, her expression as unreadable as stone. She looked harmless, outmatched. But her mind was already dissecting the room. The distance to each man, the broken window behind her, the loose metal beam above the scarred leader's head, the gun loosely gripped by the youngest guard. They saw a prisoner. Mara saw opportunities. She exhaled once, slow, steady, and then, she moved. What happened next became legend. In under 3 seconds, Mara twisted her body just enough for the gun to slip past her temple. The leader's arm jerked, and the bullet tore through empty air. She pivoted, letting her shoulder crash into his elbow. The gun flew from his hand, clattering across the concrete. Chaos erupted. Mara swept her leg under the nearest attacker, sending him crashing into another. She used her zip-tied hands to hook the fallen rifle, flipping it upward just enough to catch it between her wrists. She fired a warning shot into the air. It wasn't meant to kill, but to shock, to freeze, to break the militia's illusion of power. The youngest guard panicked, raising his weapon blindly. Mara spun behind a crate, the bullet grazing her shoulder, but she didn't stop. She launched herself toward him, striking his wrist with the butt of the rifle. The weapon clattered to the ground, and he stumbled back, terrified. "Don't," she warned him softly, and he didn't. The scarred leader, furious and humiliated, lunged with a knife. Mara stepped inside his reach, too close for him, perfect for her, and twisted his wrist until he dropped it. She knocked him to the ground with a single blow to the throat, leaving him gasping. Within moments, every gun was on the floor, every fighter disarmed or unconscious, and Mara Hale stood alone in the center of the warehouse, blood dripping from her arm, breath steady as stone. Jenkins stared at her through half-open eyes. "Remind me," he croaked, "never to make you mad." She cracked a rare smile. "Took you long enough." The remaining militia members fled the warehouse as drones buzzed overhead, her team, finally tracing her location. Naval operators stormed the building within minutes, expecting a hostage situation. Instead, they found Mara standing amid a pile of disarmed attackers, calmly cutting Jenkins free with the knife she took from their leader. Her commanding officer stopped in his tracks. "Hale, did you do all this alone?" She shrugged. "You know I hate waiting." But the truth, the one she rarely admitted, wasn't about ego, or violence, or proving herself. She simply refused to let someone she cared about die. Weeks later, after Jenkins recovered and their mission was complete, Mara stood at the shoreline watching the ocean move the way it always did, restless, determined, beautiful. Jenkins joined her, hands in his pockets. They put a gun to your head, he said quietly. Most people would have begged. Frozen, broken. Mara didn't look at him. Instead, she closed her eyes and breathed in the salt wind. Fear only controls you, she said, if you let it. Is that the message you want the world to hear? She finally turned to him, eyes steady, voice unshaken. No, the message is this: strength isn't about what you can do. It's about what you're willing to stand up for, even when you're scared. Jenkins nodded slowly. And that's why you're the best SEAL I've ever known. Mara smiled at the horizon. Not the best, she said softly. Just someone who refuses to back down. Final message for listeners. In the end, Mara Hale's story isn't about combat or courage under fire. It's about conviction. About choosing to protect others even when the cost is high. About rising when others expect you to fall. And about understanding that real strength isn't loud, or showy, or proud. Sometimes, real strength is silent, unshakable, and absolutely unstoppable.